In this tutorial, we will go over how to create and use a rubric using the built-in Rubrics tool in Blackboard. This is a new feature in Blackboard 9.1, and you can find it by going into your course, going down to the Course Tools area under the Control panel, and selecting the option for Rubrics. Here you can see any rubrics that have been created. You can also create a new rubric from scratch, or you can import a rubric. We'll practice creating a rubric. Click the button for Create Rubric. Give the rubric some sort of a name, perhaps something associated with the assignment, such as discussion rubric, something that you'll recognize when you go to use it later. You can give a description as well. And keep in mind that you can select to have this rubric viewable by students, so you may want to give a really descriptive name as well as some sort of description of what this is and what it means to them, so that when they look at it they'll understand how they're being graded. And once you've done that to your satisfaction, you can scroll down to Rubric Detail, and here you can choose from a number of customizations for the rubric. You can see that right now there are criteria listed. There are formatting, organization, and grammar. There's a weight given to each one, totaling 100% of the assignment score, whatever that allocated score is in the gradebook. And then you can allocate a particular percentage of that weight, depending on whether the student has reached novice, competent, or proficient level in that criteria. So you can add rows, you can add columns, you can change this from points to point range to percentage. You can choose to show the criteria weight or not, and you can choose to balance the weights with different options by clicking this button. So once you have set the rubric to your satisfaction, you will click Submit at the bottom. And you can now see that Test 2, the rubric that I've just created, is listed underneath my Rubrics area. So when I click on the drop-down menu next to each of these rubrics, I can choose to open, edit, copy, or delete. So I could copy this and make another version and then customize it for a different assignment if I wanted to do that, or I could delete it. If I click View Associated Content, it will show any assignments that I've associated this rubric with. So that means anything that I'm going to be using this rubric to grade will be listed here. So far I have not associated this new rubric with any assignment. So if I want to do that, if I want to use this to grade an assignment or to grade a discussion post, which is also a possibility, I will simply go to that section. So we'll choose assignments first and practice here. I'm going to choose the orientation assignment in this case, and I'll click the drop-down menu to edit this assignment. And when I scroll down, I can see that underneath the grading area, in addition to my points possible, I can see that I have the option to add a rubric. So I can select an existing rubric from one of the two that I have listed in my own rubric section. I can create a new one here as well, or I can create from an existing rubric. So I'll choose Select Rubric, and this gives me the option to choose from the rubrics I've created here in Blackboard. I will select Test 2 in this case and click Submit. And you can see that this rubric now appears as part of the course. Now, under Type, I can choose whether this will be used in my grading process or whether it will be used for secondary evaluation. I'm going to use it for grading because that means when I go in to view submitted items from students, this rubric will be available to me to interact with and to select from within the criteria in order to grade that item. Now on the left here you can see that the little red X means that you can remove this rubric from this assignment. It doesn't mean you're deleting the rubric altogether, you're just removing its association with this assignment. You can choose to view the rubric by clicking the middle button here, or you can choose to edit the rubric right here in the assignment area as well. So you know there are a couple of different ways you can view or edit a rubric, and one way is within any assignment with which it's associated. Another way is to simply click on Rubrics underneath the Course Tools area. Now over to the right you can see right now this rubric is set not to be shown to students, But I can set it to show this rubric to students so that when they go into the assignment, they can see that there's a rubric associated with it, and I can either choose to show them the scores within that rubric, or I can choose to show it without the scores. So you can set that to your satisfaction, and once you're finished, click Submit after you're finished editing that particular assignment, and now this rubric is associated with the assignment. Now, if we want to do the same thing for a discussion board assignment, click Discussion Board. We'll go to an item for which I have some ungraded submissions, and I'll choose to edit this discussion board. And it works the same way as a regular assignment in that I can scroll down to the forum settings here, and I can choose to add a rubric. So I'm going to choose to select a rubric. I'll choose Test 2 in this case and click Submit. And I've now associated this rubric with this discussion board assignment. So I'll click Submit. And I'll show you what it looks like to grade using a rubric that's been associated with a particular assignment. So because I have some ungraded submissions in this discussion board, I'll be able to demonstrate this. I'm going to click to grade this forum, and I'll select a student whose submission I have not graded. And you can see that in the center of the screen I have the student's submission. I can read that, decide how I'd like to score it, and what I'll do is I'll come over to the right hand side, and you can see I have the student's name, the number of posts she's made, and so on, other statistics about her submission. I can edit the grade, or I can view the rubric. If I choose View Rubric, I'm going to get a pop-up window that shows me the rubric, but you can see that this is not interactive. When I click on these particular areas, it doesn't allow me to change anything or to score the student's submission. This is just for viewing, so if you're just trying to remind yourself, how does this rubric work? How am I going to score the student? You can choose View Rubric just to look at the rubric, but not to interact with it. If you're finished with that, you can click Exit. And now if you actually want to use that rubric to interact with and to score the forum, you click Edit Grade. And here you have the option of either scoring manually after having looked at your rubric, or you can see that the name of the rubric associated here, Test 2, is listed. You can see that it's used for grading, and this means I can click this button to view the rubric in a window. Again, you get a pop-out, but this time it's interactive, and you can see now I've got this easy way of scoring the discussion post, and I can select under formatting how well the student has done. We'll say competent here, organization perhaps not so much, grammar was pretty good, etc. And I can give feedback in each individual area, as well as feedback on a whole about the discussion, or I can do one or the other, whichever the student needs most. So once I have done that, you can see that this gives a raw total of the score. So because the student didn't receive any points for the organization and only received partial points for formatting and grammar, the raw total of her score would be 4.95. This means that the rubric is scoring this for me according to my input. Now I can change the number of points as well in here if I want to. And then when I have finished that scoring process, I'll click Save, and that will save the student's grade so that when he or she goes into their grade book to view the score for their discussion posting, then they'll not only see the score, but they'll also see the feedback and the categories that they've received the feedback for. So I'm not going to score this student just yet since I haven't had a chance to read her submission yet, so I'll click Exit instead of Save. This concludes a short tutorial on how to use, associate, and score using rubrics. If you have any further questions, you can contact me, Amy Moore, at amy.moore@fscj.edu. Thanks.